Hello, everybody, and good evening. My name is Arleth, and you're watching World Talks, live from Warsaw. Hungary was once one of Central Europe's economic leaders, but in recent years, it's fallen into stagnation and lost its competitive edge. Weak growth, high inflation, and declining industrial output have exposed deeper structural problems that have been building for decades. At the same time, political and institutional changes have contributed to declining investor confidence and growing public dissatisfaction. These are the issues mostly on the minds of voters this Sunday in Hungary when the ballots are cast. And now joining me to discuss is Péter Bod, former governor of the National Bank of Hungary. Hello, sir, and thank you so much for joining us in World Talks. Yes.
Thank you for the invitation.
To start off, we see the recent report out here in Poland that shows in so many areas how Hungary is economically lagging behind, especially in the countries in the V4. What were the key factors behind Hungary's shift from a regional economic leader to an underperforming economy?
Well, it's a sad story for me because at the time of the regime change 35 years ago, Hungary was in the lead in terms of productivity, for instance. And yes, you are right. Right now, the Hungarian economy is not growing. It has not grown for 4 consecutive years. And productivity lags behind that of other more dynamic countries. And I guess it's mostly has to do with government policies. Mr. Orban's over-centralization policy did not help competition. And without competition, you don't have a modern economy. That's so simple. And then other issues, he just tried to put Hungary in between Europe and the Eastern powers. I don't think that helped, and major corporations just would like to see the future, would like to see the direction, and that's the stake of this present election now.
Now, in terms of economic or low GDP growth and high inflation, what do you think is to explain? Is it just the government policies, or is it the government policies combined with something else?
Well, Mr. Orban blamed first the Germans. Well, the culprits, the Germans always, and that's partly true because the Hungarian industry has strong links to German automotive industry. But that's, of course, not a full explanation. Then they blamed the Ukrainians, strangely, and has built a whole policy on blaming the Ukrainians. I just received, as a voter, a letter from himself. And then nothing is mentioned of the health situation, the budget situation. The budget, for instance, exploded today. We just received the figure of the March deficit is huge. I have not seen in my whole life such a huge monthly deficit. So there's a lot of problems, but the economy is hold on. Businessmen are waiting. They would like to see the direction because the last 4 years have been full of changes, ad hoc decisions, over-politicized decisions. We have not seen any proper direction, and the budget is an issue. And then, as you mentioned, the inflation is an issue. Hungary is highly inflationary. The forint, the HUF, has been pretty volatile in recent years.
Now, what about the average Hungarian voter? What is really most important for them in this election? We've seen the billboards demonizing Péter Bod, as well as President Volodymyr Zelensky, trying to conflate him with an external threat that is threatening Hungarians. But what are the most important issues for Hungarians in this election?
Well, the threat card, I think, is used because the government cannot use other cards. Half a year ago, by the way, the propaganda focused on good economic figures, but very few of good figures. Unemployment is not shockingly high, although it has been increasing in the last month. Inflation is pretty high. We were the European record holders 3 years ago in terms of inflation. And yes, the voters recognize, notice that the pay has not been increasing very dynamically in recent years. And then corruption cases and the mismanagement of the government, public services. There's a lot of complaint in health issues. The trains are not on time, the post office, So you can sense that something is wrong with the Hungarian state. And then it leads, obviously, to the party that has been in power for 16 years and 4 years before that. So that's a long time. You cannot blame others. To blame the Ukrainians, which is crazy, or the Germans, or he never claimed, by the way, never blamed Mr. Orban Putin or Putin's war, and very quiet about the Iran events, although Hungary is a net importer of energy, and high energy cost is extremely hard burden on the Hungarian economy.
Right, and that already hurt all of us in the lead up to the war in Ukraine, and it looks like it's now the war in Iran is absolutely compounding that issue again. Now, what about the European Union? Of course, Viktor Orban is no friend of Brussels. How has the conflict with the European Union impacted Hungary's investment levels and even the economic outlook?
Well, minutes ago, there was the Hungarian parliament shown to you, and if you notice, there was no European flag. There was the Hungarian flag, there's another flag belonging to the Hungarian past, but nothing about European Union. So Mr. Orban's, and the letter he sent to me today as a voter mentions Brussels, Kiev, Zelensky, Brussels and Kiev 4 times in a letter. So it's a very strange thing, because Hungary, of course, benefits a lot, like Poland, like Czech Republic, the Baltic countries, belonging to this huge market. Half of the GDP in Hungary is produced by firms of foreign background, foreign-owned firms. So our future depends on Europe. And that's why it's so strange to build a campaign on the anti-Brussels things. Of course, other politicians also love to blame foreign things, but it's very naive. And the interesting thing is that 2/3 of Hungarians would like to have euro. A majority, vast majority of Hungarians are happy with being in the European Union. So he goes against the will of the majority of the people. So 2/3 majority in parliament does not reflect how we feel about Europe, where we belong to.
Yes, well, Hungarians at least have a viable choice in this election. They can choose someone else who can maybe change their future for the better. Péter Bod, former governor of the National Bank of Hungary, thank you so much for joining us. Very appreciate this conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you much. Bye.
And that's all the time we have on this edition of World Talks. Thanks for watching, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.